Welcome everybody. I'm so excited we have a few people here live in person. Today we're going to be talking about becoming the new you, nutrition and lifestyle management. Objectives today, talking a little bit more about nutrition, exercise. There's a lot more that goes into living a healthy lifestyle. But with 30 minutes, I thought, focusing on mostly those two topics. And then discussing recommendations for both nutrition and exercise, and then discuss strategies to incorporate these goals into your life. So, what are the benefits of good exercise, nutrition? Why are we here today? Why do we even care to talk about this topic? So, lots of benefits to living a healthy lifestyle. Weight management, whether that looks like weight loss or weight maintenance. Good nutrition, healthy exercise are going to be key components of that. Decreased risk of developing certain medical conditions, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, even decreasing your risk of things like osteoporosis, dementia, and certain cancers. And then it helps you manage those conditions too, certainly if you already have a diagnosis, in addition to working with your physician. Improvement in mental health and sleep, particularly with exercise and nutrition. And then decreasing the risk of falls, along with that osteoporosis, and improved quality of life, and decreased risk of all causes of death. So I was going to start out with exercise. So current physical activity and exercise goals are to get at least 150 to 170 minutes of moderate exercise per week, or 75 minutes of vigorous activity, and then strength training at least twice a week. And this can be broken up in multiple different ways, but what does that actually kind of come out to? So moderate activity, something that's getting that heart rate up. I like to talk about the talk test. So if you're doing something in that moderate activity, you can talk, but you're certainly not singing your favorite song. You're a little bit more out of breath than that. Lots of different ways to get this in: going for a brisk walk, doing some yard work, playing with your kids, going for a hike, light bike with biking at a casual pace, golfing without the cart. So you're walking to the different holes. But lots of different ways to incorporate this. Vigorous activity, so you're working a little bit more. Your heart rate's going up a little bit. You're breathing harder. With that talk test, maybe you're just saying a few words. You're certainly not carrying out a conversation. You're working harder than that. So jogging, running, swimming laps, certain sports kind of contribute to that vigorous activity. Recently, last month, I got an email from the American Medical Association with a study that I thought was interesting, looking at how much exercise is really needed to live longer. And it does show that getting above those minimum levels of exercise does have added benefit. Exercising even 2 to 4 times those minimum recommendations, somewhere between 20 to 30% reduction in different comorbidities and causes of death. Benefits of exercise, we've talked quite a bit about this, but improving quality of life, cardiovascular fitness, decreasing your risk of falls, improves bone health, sleep and mood as well. So that sounds great. How do I incorporate that into my life? I recommend starting small and starting slow. It doesn't have to be going from 0 to 60 in 3.5. It doesn't mean that you have to start out getting 150 minutes a week. Gradually and slowly build these things into your life. Will also help decrease your risk of things like injury. Just finding ways to keep yourself moving. Parking at the end of the parking lot and walking into clinic. Taking the stairs instead of going up that elevator. During your lunch break, getting up and going for a quick walk. Just finding small ways throughout your day to stay a little bit more active. Penciling in exercise. We use Outlook and Google to schedule meetings, Making it a point that at 7:30 I'm exercising tomorrow, or at 4:30 after work, so that it's scheduled, it's a priority, and you're gonna keep yourself accountable. Doing things you enjoy. Exercise doesn't have to be a daunting thing that you dread every single day. If it is, you should find something else to do. If you don't like running, going hiking, spending time outdoors, involving your kids and your family, making it something that is fun and enjoyable will help keep you on track. And then thinking about starting with a family member or friend, somebody who's going to hold you accountable, and again, kind of adds to that enjoyment aspect of things. The other thing I wanted to talk about are, one barrier for some people to get active and start an exercise regimen is, a gym membership is expensive. Buying all the equipment is expensive. Looking at things like free websites, free programs in the area, places you can go to walk. It doesn't have to be a expensive commitment to start an exercise program. Questions about exercise before we move on to nutrition? All right. This is a wordy slide, but probably my punch point. Somebody asked me earlier, in 30 seconds, what is the key parts of your talk today? There are a lot of diet plans out there, a lot of what we call, fad diets. There's really no one size fits all. You might be scrolling through the internet, getting hit with advertisements, and it's overwhelming, the amount of options and things there are out there. One thing that I do recommend is when you're looking at something or just thinking about making a change, focusing on choosing nutrient-dense foods. These are your fruits, your vegetables, the whole grains, your dairy. We think about shopping around the edges of the grocery store. That's where the produce section is, and limiting kind of those inner parts of the grocery store, which is kind of where all those prepackaged foods types are. Start small. Again, we don't have to make several big changes all at once. Maybe picking a few different things that you want to improve on. Along those same lines, making sure that the goals that you're making, are specific. New Year's resolutions of, I'm gonna eat healthier are great, but what are you gonna do to achieve that goal? Making sure that what you choose to work on is something that's specific and measurable, and you're able to track your progress and how you're doing. Something that's not as overwhelming or all-encompassing. Making changes sustainable. I like to say whatever diet plan you choose should be one that you can follow 7 days a week, 365 days a year, for the rest of your life. Doing something that makes sense for you in your lifestyle. That will be a long-term change. Food trackers and diaries can be helpful, especially initially when you're taking a step back and looking at what you're currently eating. There's a lot of great ones out there, Noom and other programs that also look at mindfulness and other aspects of our eating habits. Mindful eating, another, I think, huge part of eating healthy. We're all busy people, we're eating on the go, but really if we're not taking that time to sit down and enjoy our meal, we might not get as much satisfaction from it. We live in a land of portion distortion. So even if we're putting all good stuffs into our body, making sure that we're not eating too much of it, paying attention to serving size, packages. When you go out to eat, we're getting these huge, large plates of food, oftentimes several servings. But when we go home, we're still kind of having that picture in our mind of, the plate and the portions are getting larger. So making sure we're just being mindful of how much we're eating. And then again, making sure that we're keeping things fun. Being on a diet doesn't have to be boring. I think we get so much enjoyment out of eating. You know, we get together with coworkers over lunch, we gather with family members over food at the end of the day. So still making sure that you're finding enjoyment out of the things that you're choosing to eat, eating a variety of things from each food group. If you don't like salads, don't eat a salad. There are several other fruits and vegetables and healthy options out there. It doesn't have to be forcing yourself to eat something that you don't love. And then on the same page, incorporating your family and cultural traditions along with these changes. One way to start is thinking about healthy swaps. I do this quite a bit in my life. So, you know, substituting veggie noodles for white noodles, you know, doing things like zucchini noodles, substituting Greek yogurt for things like sour cream on your tacos, things like that, fruit as a dessert. Still getting some of that sweet taste, but also getting some more nutrients and fiber. And then thinking infused water or sugar-free drinks instead of sodas and juices. Beware of unhealthy foods disguised as healthy. Packaging and advertisements, they get tricky. You know, looking at the grocery store this weekend, there was this beautiful aisle of, you know, what really was displayed as these healthy, snacky food options. But when you pick up those packages, making sure that you're really choosing something that's actually healthy. Granola bars, especially some of them, can actually be more like a candy bar in disguise. Sweetened yogurts, looking at, you know, the sugar content of them, thinking maybe about buying lower sugar options, or plain yogurt and adding your own toppings, your own fruit to it. Veggie, I'll say chips in quotes. If you're thinking about choosing some of those products, making sure you're looking at the ingredient list. Is a vegetable actually one of the top options, or is it really potato starch that's just flavored and colored to look like a vegetable? And then sports drinks oftentimes have as much sugar in them as juice and sodas, so just being mindful. Lots of barriers to eating like this, otherwise I think all of us would already be doing it. Time, I think, is a huge barrier for a lot of people. It takes a little bit of time to make sure that we're making these changes. One thing to think about is planning ahead on your weekend or your day off, you know, thinking about your meals for the week, cutting up and washing all of those fruits and vegetables, putting them in the fridge in containers so that they're just as accessible and easy to grab as some of those more snacky options. Leftovers, making a whole bunch of that meal and eating that the rest of the week so that we're not tempted to stop at whatever fast food chain we love on our way home from work. We know we already have something we can heat up quick and easy when we're home. And then when we are eating on the go, choosing some of those healthier options. You know, you're a truck driver, you're traveling to sports games, things like that, you know. There are fruits, vegetables, water, things you can purchase at convenience stores and gas stations. Cost. Cost, I hear, is for some people a barrier to eating healthy and making the changes they want to make. So looking at things like in-season produce, things are typically cheaper when they're in season. Frozen or canned options, they have a longer shelf life, may not go bad as quickly. And then eating at home will certainly save some money as well. One question I get asked very frequently is how many calories should I eat? And there's no magic number for everybody. This varies drastically on lots of different factors. How old you are, your gender, how active you are, what your goals are. Are we maintaining weight? Are we losing weight? So many different things go on into this number. A lot of these next several recommendations are from the Dietary Guidelines for Americans, their 2020-2025 edition. They do have a good website with a lot of really great information. But when thinking about how are we choosing foods to meet our calorie needs, I really like this graphic of the majority of our calories should be met with nutrient-dense foods from the food groups, fruits and vegetables, your whole grains, proteins and dairies, and limiting 15% or less to some of those sugar-sweetened and higher fat options. I am not going to go into depth with this chart, but again, it's from the Dietary Guidelines for Americans. It does kind of break things down based on gender and estimated calories. Again, not perfect, but thinking about how those macronutrients and goals would be broken down. I think an easier way to look at this is thinking about something like a MyPlate. So with an infographic like MyPlate, thinking half of that plate should be made up of things like fruits and vegetables, a quarter of it with your protein foods, and then a quarter of it with your grains, and then including dairy as well. So for example, what this might look like for somebody eating a 2,000 calorie diet, getting in 2.5 or 3 servings of vegetables, 2 servings of fruit, 6 ounce equivalents of whole grains, and then certainly 3 cups of dairy, 5.5 ounce equivalents of protein foods in a day. Changes based on age as well. So fruits and vegetables, again, this should be half of our kind of plate when we're thinking about that infographic. Choosing a wide variety. You can't get all the nutrients you need from one single fruit or vegetable. Rich in fiber, essential nutrients, antioxidants. But you can get creative with how you eat your fruits and vegetables, how things are prepared, how you're flavoring things, but choosing majority from whole fruits and whole vegetables rather than purees and highly processed options. Grains, at least half of our grains should be whole grains. A whole grain contains that whole grain kernel. When we're looking at things like refined grains, we're removing some of that fiber and the essential nutrients from it. So ways to kind of incorporate more whole grains for breakfast, doing a whole grain oatmeal instead of the Pop-Tart or the sugar-sweetened cereal. Lunch, making swaps on your bread choices to a whole grain option. And then experimenting with different grains. We do a lot of quinoa in my house, but there's a lot of different grains out there. Whole grain rice, lentil, amaranth, millet. Protein foods, another important essential nutrient. Animal products, things like meat, poultry, eggs, and then non-animal products, looking at beans, nuts, legumes. Focusing mostly on those leaner protein options with meat, limiting red meats, especially those that are more processed. And thinking about lunch meats, high in salt and sodium content, and limiting those types of products. Dairy. We live in the dairy state, but it would, many Americans actually don't get enough dairy in their diet. Again, we talked about getting at least 3 cups of some sort of dairy or calcium-containing food. It's an essential source of calcium, vitamin D, protein that helps protect bones. Fiber, another key nutrient that I think we often don't think enough about, making sure that we're eating enough fiber in our diets, fruits, vegetables, whole grains. It's important for the gut health. When we think about it, it also decreases cholesterol and helps manage blood sugar by keeping us from spiking as much. Beverages are sneaky. I think sugar-sweetened beverages are one of the most common areas of some of those excess calories with really limited nutrient benefits to them. So choosing mostly water, sugar-free options, and limiting the soda, the juices, sports drinks, and alcohol. I'll include alcohol in this category. Not a whole lot of nutrient benefits. Salt. As a society, I think we get too much salt in our diet. The recommendation is actually to keep it less than 2,300 milligrams, so less than a teaspoon of salt a day in foods already prepared, and then the salt that we add to our diet. So when we're seasoning our foods at home, thinking about some of those non-salt options. And added sugars, again, we should be limiting this to less than 10% of our calories. And not just thinking candy and ice cream, thinking about the added sugars and things like yogurt and juices, and being mindful of artificial sweeteners and sugar alcohols as well. One thing I think I've been talking about throughout is limiting unhealthy fats, saturated fats included and trans fats with this. Saturated fats, we find that in things like butter, palm oil, certain red meats, especially higher fat contents, whole fat dairy. We do know this is associated with an increased risk of heart disease. The two diets that I probably recommend the most in clinic, and this is going to vary based on medical problems that someone might have, but would be the Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet. Mediterranean diet, we know that this is considered the heart-healthy diet, but it does much more. It lowers cholesterol. It also improves diabetes, can reduce your risk of dementia. So this is a diet that's really rich in fruits and vegetables, whole grains, and then when thinking about fats, choosing those healthier fat options, the olive oil, the omega-3 fatty acids. It includes a moderate amount of fish and then some lean protein, and limiting kind of that red meat and that processed meat, which sounds quite a bit like the rest of the recommendations that we've been talking about today. I think it's a really great nutrient-rich diet. And then when staying within your calorie recommendations, your energy expenditure, what you're putting into your body can also help with weight management. The DASH diet, the dietary approaches to stopping hypertension, is a really great diet for those with high blood pressure. And I've seen it work really well at reducing that blood pressure number, independent of medication. So the big thing is limiting your salt to less than 2,300 milligrams a day. Again, rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and limiting those saturated fats and processed fats and choosing lean protein options. That's what I've prepared today. Happy to answer other questions or people want to come up to me afterwards. I appreciate everyone being here today.